I'm R.A. Schwartz, along with my co-host, Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. We're here with Jasmine Baker, and we're talking Dallas Wings. So far, the Dallas Wings are winless, and we're gonna dive into that. We've been begging Jasmine Baker to join us on the show for a while, and we're glad that she does and did. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community for less than a cup of coffee a month. You can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. Jazz, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad I could finally be on the show. And I listen. Shout out to the music, the intro music. I'm over here pop locking in just the whole bit. So thank you for having me on.
We've been tweaking it. We're trying to get it a little bit more modern, you know.
I actually taken it back in time now.
Oh, well,
I love it. I still feel like I'm in a video game.
well, I was gonna say it's still. We wanted to keep the essence of it, which is old school video game. So I'm glad we didn't lose that. Jasmine, it's hot down in Dallas, and something that hasn't been heating up so far, at least, or has been lukewarm, has been the Dallas Wings. Um, I'm torn because early in the season, obviously we're early in the season, but if we look at the games that have been played so far, the first couple of games, I think this team looked a lot better. And now we're seeing a kind of, I don't want to say regression, but they're definitely not continuing the growth pattern that we saw in, let's say, the first two games. What are your thoughts on kind of the growth of this team so far?
I think my biggest thing is that I totally understand where Brian is coming from in the regard that he's looking at the growth of this team. And that's really where he's at. And I think Brian is being realistic based on our roster, based on our roster issues. We have talent, but we have a new era, I keep stressing this whole new era because we have a new coach, new team essentially. Glory Johnson has been the only player that's on this roster right now that is active and who we've had, since the inception of this team. So I understand that fans are frustrated. I can only imagine how the players feel. But right now, I'm also looking at, okay, are we improving though? Are we improving? Because when I look at um, who we've played thus far, and like you said, it's early, but at the end of the day, I'm looking at, okay, it's not like we're getting blown out by these teams. People have to keep that in mind. There are times that we're looking at, okay, Dallas is struggling. Personally, I think in the second half, we're struggling in the second half, and obviously, I want to say the biggest blowout we've had since we started the season has been against the Mystics, and 86-62. And when you consider the fact that we lost to them early on in the season like that, especially a team that is expected to possibly go back to the finals, I'm not that disappointed. I'm looking at that we're losing by, less than 10 points, give or take, to the rest of these teams. So for me, I'm looking at that we're still trying to figure out. The starting five. Like Brian's consistently trying to figure that out because right now, Enrique's hurt. It's like, I can't imagine being in his position, given what he started off with and where we're at now. And I'm just like, has it even been a month since the season started? No. And I'm just like, I don't know. That's how my mom's like, how are you a Dallas Wings fan? And I was like, Mom, I just show up. That's what it is at this point. I just show up, because you never know what you're going to get from week to week, and it's exciting nonetheless from last season to this season for sure. Just in terms of everything that's constantly going on with this team. But because the last time we won preseason game against Connecticut, and now Connecticut's one of the top teams. Now, mind you, a lot of people don't put much stock in the preseason. I understand why, but that's the last time we've won anything. And then we went in, against the Dream, and we really thought we were going to come out with, start the season off with that win. So, at this point, I'm just hoping that when we do get the first dub of the season, that we get it at home. We have a nice little 2 games. We play tomorrow. We play against Atlanta, and then on Thursday we play against Phoenix. So we shall see if we can pull off a win. And the third game after that, June 22nd, is the big Vegas versus Dallas. So that's gonna be at Vegas. So I wish I could be there, but
that's gonna be a rough one. I mean, I do think I like your odds tomorrow against the Dream, just with how the Dream have been struggling, and there's been a lot of. I mean, if you look back, that first game was probably one of the more competitive games that the Wings have put together. Yeah. So I hear where you're coming from. It's a frustrating time, kind of like you said. Agler comes in there, and it just almost feels like piece by piece they have been pulling away everything that this team had. And I know Rachel and we'd been talking about this a little bit before we got on here, but this team is I mean, I don't even know. Rachel, talk to me about this. I know I talked to you before about this, and I'm not even going to be able to word what you were saying in a coherent, intelligent way. So I think a lot of teams, or a lot of people, fans looking at the teams go, oh, Brian Agler, one of the more well-respected coaches in this league, won championships. He's a very winning coach, comes to this team that everybody last year said was a little bit more of game planning and coaching away from being a real contender. Obviously, they've lost some players, but on the flip side, you look at a team like the Sky, who now have a new coach, an unproven coach, no knocks against him, but they've kind of, I don't want to say have grown a little bit faster, but at least when you're looking at records or sparks of what they should be doing, we've seen that growth a little bit quicker in Sky. Talk to me about the ebbs and flows of growing a team.
No, I just think that I agree with Jasmine. Ari, I agree with you, and kind of what we're seeing with the Dallas Wings so far. I guess maybe I have a little bit more of a lax approach with it, because I guess in my mind, I kind of anticipated this. You've got one of the winningest coaches in WNBA right now, I think the winningest, who's just taken over a franchise where basically the roster's completely been blown up, in my opinion. Yeah, you have familiar names, you have returners, but you're without so many pieces. Mariah Jefferson showing up later in the season, even your rookie, arguably probably one of the biggest contenders for Rookie of the Year, at least going into the season. We thought Arike is out with an injury. So you're battling some injuries. You're still trying to figure out your identity. Brian Agler is going to bring in a system that this Wings franchise is not used to working with, demanding things from the returners and from these vets, that a style of play that they're not used to learning. They're not used to playing under, especially from a defensive standpoint. So, Jasmine, I loved your point about losing. I mean, they've lost 3 out of their 4 games, or 3 out of their 5 games, were 4 points or less. So it's not like, they're getting routed and this is a team that has no idea what's going on. I think this is a team that's very early in their development. This is a team that's in a complete rebuild from every aspect of it. You're battling so many roster changes. I mean, even last night, with how depleted they are from the guard position, you've got a rookie, Brooke McCarty-Williams, who's having to step up in this role that probably they wouldn't have anticipated she would be stepping up in. And she comes in and she's making great plays down the stretch. And, if you played another 5 minutes of that game, who knows, maybe Dallas would have had a shot at it. But I don't know. I'm not too concerned. Honestly, I liked what I am seeing from Dallas, given the circumstances of their roster. But I think if you want to compare them to the Sky, REA, the Sky are so much further along in terms of, I guess, they're building, even though they are under a new coach, because the roster's been together. Now you have Jantel Lavender, who comes in, but that's a veteran player who's become accustomed to working in different systems. And Diamond DeShields, Gabby Williams, yeah, they're in their second year in the league, but this core of Sky players have been together for now going on their second year. And then you could even look at Vandersloot and Quigley and Dolson and some of those players. They've been together even longer. So I feel like James Wade kind of had a roster that was a little more set in stone, a little bit more defined roles, even though they're still being defined. Whereas the Dallas Wings, in the big spectrum of the WNBA right now, everything is a huge question mark. Everything is so off kilter, and that's just being built literally from below ground zero, in my opinion. So it's just going to take some time. And honestly, I feel like their chances against the Dream are pretty good, just because of what I saw from them last night against Indiana. They're competing. They really are. They just gotta get the pieces together, and they got to be out on the court together a little bit longer.
I hear that. And I will say, to add on to both of your points, when you're talking about a team that essentially last year's whole game plan was throw the ball to Liz, let her do whatever, you're reprogramming your brain in how to play in the W for a lot of these very young players. If you just look at the experience of these players, it's ridiculous how young this team is. And it's almost shocking, to be quite honest, because when you think about this team, they have athleticism, they have youth, but I never thought of them as being so ridiculously young. Jasmine, is this a team that, even though they're young, can grow quickly, or is this going to be a few years of a project, in your opinion?
It's interesting you asked me that, because Ashley Robinson, who, for those of you who don't know, won a title under Brian Agler when he was in Seattle. And, she's been really active in the basketball community here in Dallas, where she's from. And she was at the draft party at the beginning of the season. And she said, on record, I see Dallas winning a championship in the next few years under Brian Agler. To me, that says a lot about Brian Agler. It says a lot about the players and the players who were coached under him and how much they believe in Brian Agler. And I think that's the thing that the players consistently say, who are on the Dallas Wings. This is one thing that they consistently mention, is that buying into the system. They understand, like you said, they're going to have to reprogram themselves and mentally, physically, to be better. And like Glory Johnson and Skylar Diggins-Smith and players like that who obviously they're the oldest players on the team, the older players on the team, excuse me, and they are also mothers, and I think that helps them in terms of trying to help this team figure out their identity all over again, and helping. I think it's great that Skylar has taken Arike under her wings like she has, and I think this is a team that can really, and I think they're doing it now. That's the thing I think a lot of people may not understand, is I think we're seeing that now, and how quickly these players have had to adjust under Brian's system. I think they're doing that now. I think we're seeing it, and even though they're losing, because Brian said, talking to the media, he was like, y'all see this as wins and losses. He's like, I'm looking at this as growth, because he understands, and I think those of us who may have had some coaching experience also understand this is where we might be right now, but this is not probably where we're going to be at the end of the season. And I think that a lot of fans may not understand that, but I get what he's saying, because you also have to I think especially fans who are very who have been following the team for a long time, understand that roster issues have been the number one issues with Dallas Wings since they got to the city. So seeing that it looks like we're going to keep probably a good core of these players, I personally think we're probably going to be keeping a good core of these players, as well as Brian, for a while. I'm excited to see how it all evolves. I don't think they're going to be, because I know there have been other teams in the past who we weren't sure when they were ever going to see their first win. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case with Dallas. I think we have the right pieces that we can get it done. And I think it's just going to take a little bit longer than we anticipated. And the thing about it is, like what Rachel said, And like you already alluded to earlier, we kind of had an idea after losing Liz and last season, everything that happened. We kind of already had an idea as to this was going to be bad and it was going to be unknown. But to be still to still be winless, I think that's we're just okay, when is this going to break? And I'm hoping I hope it's going to be a home game that we see it, but the only vet we have on the floor right now is Corey Johnson, and she's 6 years in, and Taylor Hill was also 6 years in. She's out with the injury, and Skylar's out right now. She's 6 years in, and she's still coming back from her pregnancy. So Teresa Plaisance, she was injured last season, but you could tell that she has a lot of she's respected by a lot of the players out there, and I'm really convinced about what this team is trying to do, and how much they believe in each other. So I think that now that the elephant is out of the room, this team can go forward with what they were trying to do before Liz got there. And I think that I've said this before, because I've said that people talk about Liz being such a factor, and I was like, well, I think that with Liz being when Liz was there and she was such a big factor, a lot of players could not be as effective as they were. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you end up seeing now is, like you said, players trying to reprogram themselves to, because when you look at the production from the past 2 seasons with some of the core players that we have, some of them who at the time were rookies, and then last season, and then now, it's really interesting. It's really interesting, and it's been all over the place. But I think it adds to the beauty of sports when this team finally does get that win. Like, I know it's going to be mentally, the players need it first and foremost. The players need it to go forward to that next step of okay, we can win with this team. So that's really, I think, where we're at.
No, I hear that. And I will say, kind of to add on that, I have started to hear a lot of rumblings about players on the roster, being excited about the fact that they can finally get some plays in, get some reps in, be an active part of this team. Because when you had, and I'm not trying to knock Liz, I'm not trying to knock Skylar, but when you had those 2 players who were so polarizing, they're going to get a lot of the touches. And I think, Rachel, we've talked about this. Can you talk to me a little bit about the inconsistencies that have been going through Dallas so far?
Well, I think the inconsistencies are everything at this point. This might be a better question for Jasmine, as she's been able to watch a little bit more than necessarily I have. I think one of the biggest ones has been their rebounding numbers. Agler is such a defensive-minded guy, and you finish plays defensively with rebounds. And even just last night, watching that Fever game, Fever were able to really capitalize on a bunch of O boards big time in the first half, primarily the second quarter, which kind of dug the Wings a bit of a hole. So I know those are 2 things that Agler historically has always preached on. His teams have always been one of the top defensive teams in the league and one of the top rebounding teams in the league. That's how he's won championships. But I just think this whole team right now screams just inconsistency, and it's not a bad thing. But we're just looking at a complete reinvention of a franchise here. So the inconsistencies are completely across the board, even from who's starting night in and night out, and who's getting minutes, and what's your lineup going to look like a month from now when you've got Mariah Jefferson playing, and Skylar Diggins returns, and Azurá Stevens is who knows, maybe getting more minutes at that point. So I just think you have to play around with so many different things. You have to waive people and then bring them back as Dallas did just this week with Megan Gustafson. And I just think you as a head coach and GM of this franchise, you have to toy around with stuff right now, and you're playing around with different lineups, and especially when you've got so many injuries, that just heightens the inconsistencies, because what you thought you were building those first few games with Enrique, well, now you have to fill that spot, and that's going to send you a few steps back. And so it's just, to me, the whole thing screams inconsistency.
Jasmine, the Dallas Wings got a lot of crap, a lot of flack. Trying to keep my language clean for the kids here. For dropping and basically putting themselves on the do not enter list for the whole state of Iowa when they dropped Megan. And at what point do you think this team said, let's bring her back? Or, I mean, what goes through your mind? I was shocked to see her come back to the team. I'm shocked when they signed her. What do you think?
I'm still curious as to this Megan Gustafson experiment. I will to this day I will say we should have never let Kennedy Burke go. And obviously she's out here proving her point. So, we're left with, obviously Megan Gustafson. And I'm not trying to sound like a hater because I mean, obviously I'm at this point we'll take all the help we can get.
Be careful before you say what you say. You might not be welcome in the Midwest anymore.
And that's quite all right. I didn't see myself anyway. But I don't get me wrong though. I did also say, if anybody wants to check my Twitter, I did also say that I felt like we cut her way too soon. I personally wanted to see. I also understand though too. Don't get me wrong. I also understand too that during the preseason I was questioning her production compared to Kennedy's, obviously because we use numbers in sports. So I questioned her production. So for me, I just was kind of like, well, I could see her being developed under Brian, and I would love to see how that turns out, but we never got an opportunity to see that. Now, I feel like Dallas is sitting at 9 players right now. So 9 active players. Well, last time I counted. And so I think we're just kind of like, we'll take what we can get. And she's not terrible. I mean, she's not terrible, obviously. She was player of the year last season. But I'm still just as curious about this one because I'm also curious as to what were our other options. And that's, again, no offense and no shade to, Iowa's finest. But I'm curious as to what were our options because I love options. I say this all the time. And if she wasn't showing up during preseason, I am so confused. Like the level of uproar, and I get that. Though I will say, because I do appreciate the fact that Iowa rides for theirs like they do, because we get to bring that whole state into now the fold of the fandom. But for as much as they talked about Megan, you would have thought she was just like out here getting buckets like Kennedy, and we'd let her go.
Oh, totally. It made no. I hear where you're coming from completely, and I'm curious because when I finally got over my shock, my initial thought was, is this a reactionary action based off of what happened with Burke? Mm-hmm. Is this oh crap, like we dropped these 2 players, one of them's showing us up. Is this like maybe we made the mistake here and they start to second guess and bring them back? I think that might be a little naive of me. I think they obviously got a lot more information on Megan than any of us do. But that was definitely a thought that came in. Rachel, what do you think?
I don't think it's that complicated, in my opinion. I think throughout the course of a season, the makeup of your roster and situations are always evolving. It's such a fluid thing, and Dallas is facing injuries now that they didn't have when they first waived Megan. And then you have, the loss of Glory Johnson, which that's truly what this is about. Glory is now leaving for Eurobasket. So she's leaving probably this week, I would imagine. I don't know the exact dates, but I think you combine those 2 factors at play of Glory will be leaving the team for a period of time, and now they have injuries. They didn't have that spot before, and now they do. And so that's kind of what I see this as. And I agree with your point, Jasmine, about probably waiving her a little too soon. I would have liked to see what else she could have done with a little bit more time. And I know it was very difficult for the Dallas Wings to do that. Like they didn't really necessarily want to waive her. I mean, these are the decisions that these coaches and GMs have to make that are so painful because of the limited roster spots. It's not like this was an easy decision for them. There were so many aspects of them that, wanted to keep both of them on their roster. That's just the unfortunate, I guess, world we live in when it comes to WNBA roster spots and just limited players being able to be on a team. But I think that because the shift has happened and there is now an opportunity, now you're able to bring in some size to fill a need with Glory being gone. You get a little bit more time with someone who probably needs a little more time in her development amongst a roster. I mean, she was coming into a completely different system than what she played in Iowa. What she was asked to do in Iowa, the way she was conditioned, the way she played is polar opposite to what she's being asked to do in the WNBA. So her learning curve is going to be that much greater than your average rookie, in my opinion, because of just the way she played. And the only reason I think that way is I was a back to the basket center myself. And so when I stepped out of that world, had a tremendous learning curve from just an X's and O standpoint and being able to step out and playing from screening action, all that sort of stuff. So I think this is just a great opportunity for both. I'm happy that Megan's going to get another shot at this and get some more time under Agler's reign, because I think he can really help her progress and it could be a good fit as time goes on.
Yeah. And let's hope it works out for the state of the league and the fandom in Iowa. Something that has been getting a lot of attention so far in this WNBA season, and really every WNBA season since Twitter, Facebook, or any social media has come about, is the issues with the league website. Now, I'm not one to throw shade, right?
I am.
Let me throw my shade and then I'll just throw it to you. In the process of recording this episode, I went to the league website, silly me. I figured I'd go to the league website, get some stats on the team. And I'm looking at all these stats, whatever. I'm throwing out stats. I'm feeling good about myself. And then I dig a little deeper to realize that if you go to the league advanced stats site or page, all the stats on the landing page for the stats for team stats is 2018 stats. What the hell? What is that?
Let's just dive into this and not hold back.
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's highlight it real quick, Rachel. What? Rachel, give me the bullet points real quick of recent major issues that we've had on the league.
Goodness, I mean, we could talk about, we're just talking social media and the website. I mean, you could talk with the news of, Lindsay Gottlieb getting hired with the Cavaliers. They start with that on the splash page, which why that necessarily is on there in the first place, I'm not sure. I mean, it's still great news. So yeah, let's highlight it. But,
yep.
They're saying she coached at UCLA she coaches at Cal. She has for many years now. I think what else was there yesterday? I mean, there were tweets that went out that were just inaccurate. I mean, they were tagging Tisha Pinachero in some tweets about congratulating her into her induction to the Hall of Fame, and they tagged some random guy named Will Hoffman, and didn't correct the tweet that it was the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame Twitter handle. They tagged some random guy with like 50 followers. Which he was actually really cool about it. He tweeted back and made a big joke out of the thing. But then today, my buddy Curtis on Twitter, who just literally cracks me up from so many aspects, is always trolling the site and catching these errors. And we started out the WNBA All-Star voting today. Everything went live, and if you go on there, they've got DeWanna Bonner, who is arguably the MVP of the league at this point right now. You can't find her under the Mercury roster. She's under the Liberty's roster. Just for those of you who want to vote for Bonner, which I'm sure many of us do at this point to be an all-star, because she should be. So she's under the Liberty roster. That's an error. And then one of the last things I found is they're tagging the wrong pictures, like Tiffany Hayes. They've got as Marie Gulich. You've got
they got
Asia
the
McCarthy.
Samuelsons confused.
Hayes, yeah, the Samuels is a mess. I mean, it's just
one of them's not even in the league.
Well, I mean, What do you mean? It's not the league.
No, one of the sisters isn't even in the league, and they're using her photo for a sister who is in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we could go on and on for hours about the errors. And
I mean, what else could you possibly say? Listen. This is why I get so sarcastic on Twitter with them, because I'm like, and somebody had the nerve to tell me yesterday, and he's probably right. He said that as far as the Tisha tweet, I made a comment about some intern needs to be reprimanded for this. Now, he's not used to my sarcasm. Now, it was a two-way street with this one, because if it was an intern, yes, they do need to be reprimanded. But two, if it wasn't an intern, they need to be reprimanded too. That's my thing. At the end of the day, somebody needs to account for this right here, because we all gonna put some respect on Fitzgerald's name. She was the first chick I saw that outside. Right. Well, I'll be honest. She was the first white chick. I was like, yo, she. Oh, I didn't realize, white girls have handles like that. And I told her that. I told her, actually,
like, white girl can jump?
Listen, like, if they ever make a movie out of that with just females, I hope that with just women, I hope that she is chosen, because I said, man, and then to the child, I told her this. So that's why I was like, y'all are not about to sit up here and tweet the wrong thing. And it's one of those things that it's insulting. More than anything, it's insulting to the game that we love. It's insulting to these women. And I'm tired of seeing the disrespect. I'm really over it, because my thing is, if y'all can tell us what LeBron is eating every other week, then somebody can get these names right. Somebody can get, what your actual job is. Somebody can get that right. That's all I'm saying. So
that's insulting. That's a spit in the face. That's a slap to the face. Why do you have an intern in charge of the social media platform for one of the quickest growing professional sports leagues in sports right now?
Well, and but you know what? There are a lot of interns out there who do fantastic work. A lot of interns out there who are on it, and they cross-check, and they're efficient, and they really are on top of it. And that's the part that I don't understand here. Like, okay, if we're going to hire an intern, if we're going to have this as a part-time position or whatever, why are we not holding these people accountable to be accurate with this information? It's getting to a point where it looks Bush League. And I don't want to say that out loud, because it's harsh and we all want to act like this is rainbows and cupcakes, but it's not. It's ridiculous. This looks absolutely ridiculous. And if we can't get these basic steps right of tweeting out accurate information, and you know what? We all make mistakes. I have typos in my tweets like daily.
It's a tweet for me if I have a typo in it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just normal for you. But if we can't get on there quickly and adjust it and fix it or put out the proper information. I mean, I just don't understand why it's this difficult. I could name right now 20 people on my timeline that I have known in this community who could blow this out of the water, who could be hired right now on probably a part-time basis and get this right. And I don't understand why we can't get this right. And this is not something that involves a ton of money or reinventing the wheel or sponsorship deals or all that. I mean, this is just putting information on free platforms and getting it right. And if we can't start there, then I don't know what the hell else we're doing, because we have got to be able to start here and look professional.
Well, it's hard to troll the trolls when you can't even link to stuff to troll them,
Mm-hmm. That's it right there. And not just that, I've seen, I think it was last season during, I think it was All-Star Weekend, somebody, and I'm guessing this is some amateur that works at the WNBA office, tweeted a picture of Spider-Man and some guy in the Spider-Man suit. And I'm assuming that somebody meant to tweet this on their own account and ended up tweeting it on the WNBA account. And I'm just like, help me understand it. I don't understand. Help me understand what is y'all's process for making sure. Because even with us as media, we can't even get things, we can't even cover the league accurately, like you said, because we're looking at last season's numbers. Come on. There's no excuse at this point for it. And it's just kind of like, at what point, what is going to have to be done to make this change? And it explains why there's such a disconnect between the players and the office now.
Oh, yeah, and honestly, I think that's kind of a good thing because that's going to
Great.
push for change. But like
Yes.
you're saying, if the league is out there trying to get more people to cover it, more people to write these amazing stories, and us as reporters are sitting here looking at the league website that has one set of stats, looking at ESPN that has one set of stats, looking at, Basketball Reference or whatever that has one set of stats, and it's like, all right, well, there goes that story because I don't know which line of stats to follow.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I think it's really just accountability. It's not like any of us and the media want to sit here and just, yeah, I mean, there are points where like we make light of it and it's fun to kind of laugh about, but I don't really want to do that. I don't want to continue to have these conversations and be disappointed with this information that keeps getting out there that's not accurate, because I'm cheering for the league, like I'm cheering
Mm-hmm.
for the website and the social media. Awesome. It just makes the whole brand that much better. But I do think that we have a responsibility to hold it accountable, because if not us, who's going to? And if the fans don't know where to go and where we're helping point them in that direction, and if it's not accurate information, well, how can you expect people to really be engaged with the league? So I don't know. I get pretty fired up about it, especially just because I get sick of it, and I know I speak for a lot of people for it. But I just hope that this is something that Kathy Engelbert can come in and just, like I said, just hold it accountable. Demand better from it, because to me it's a simple fix.
Oh, totally. Yeah. All right, you guys all hit it on the head. Jazz, you wanna toss in one last comment and then let the fans know where they can find your content.
Hashtag do better. You. I mean, we could do this all day. But you can find me on all social media at We Got Game too. And just, I like to cover women's sports in general outside of the W. So keep up with me.
We at Winsidr believe in the players of the W and its community deserve the same in-depth analysis and respect that men's sports receive on a daily basis. Please consider joining our Patreon community to help support the work that we do.